Everybody's probably watching football. There it is. Brought to life, made real. I hope everyone customized theirs as well. It's a requirement. It's homework. What we got? Oh, we got some people coming. It's been a while. Yeah, we're not going to be doing a lot of talking about Stained on the main. Yeah, you got to bleach it up. You got to fuck this shit up. Rip it up. You know what I'm saying? Rip it up and start again. Everyone who's not in on that joke. That's the fit. Look how they mess. Oh, poor Joe. I had to do it, man. I had to do it. You should see the back. The back is amazing because I got the slats from the table. The bleach like ran through it. It's sick. Plus, it looks like fucking a Cure shirt. It looks like Disintegration now. It's perfect. Perfect. The green's a little green. I was looking more for like a canary yellow, but we got it. We're good. So hopefully everybody got them. And hopefully the condenser mic keeps some of the wind off, but it's a blessed fall day. I'm actually fucking freezing. No, this is not the jam band stream. This is me tying off the whole this is me tying off the whole like indie shit. Because as I said in the last one, after 94, it's like it's so over. The major labels have got it all back under control. From Dookie on, everything goes the same way it's been going since Def Leppard. And it holds true for Britpop, it holds true for all the large American stuff, whether it's hip hop, which we talked about, the Massive Ascension, and then which is just like that marks the death of Kurt Cobain as much as Kurt Cobain's suicide. You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. It was such whatever moment. So, but anyway, there's three big things that I don't know, say people haven't talked about it because I don't really pay attention anymore. I mean, the entire internet is run by 26-year-olds. I don't have time to read this shit. And no one can make any money, and it's 10 times as bad with COVID. So, like, the stuff that's getting published is fucking brutal to somebody my age. I mean, people send me things from once in a while, and I still have some newsletters like Dave Turner that I follow. But, for the most part, like main publications and stuff, it's like, oh my God, it's painful, dude. And everything is just like playlists, and that's fine. You need playlist stuff. Like Matthew Perpetua has been doing tons of this, which I definitely recommend you subscribe to him on Spotify and take advantage of that. That's it doesn't tell the story, and that's what I've always tried to do. So there's a few things that are really important if you give a shit about any of this early 90s stuff that don't get talked about almost at all, as trends. And so the main one is this, right? If you're a kid in your late teens, early 20s trying to get a band together in 1991-ish, right around the time Nirvana blows up, when Manchester and Baggy and Acid have been huge, and there's all this youth culture shit, you're looking out there and it's like, you've got The Cure, by the way, whenever Robert watches this is the laser disc of the picture show. I got it. And it's New Order, and it's Depeche Mode, and to a lesser extent even it's Duran Duran, but like, these are bands that have taken, and it's the same in America, right? Husker Du, The Replacements, R.E.M., all these bands, it took them 10 years almost in most cases to make it. And make it because they're not making any money, and it's easy for them, and they can go play big tours like the 120 Minutes tour in America with Pale New Order and the Sugar Cubes and Throwing Muses. It's taken them years to accomplish this. And what happens when they prove this audience, when they prove after doggedly being poor and eating fucking corn dogs for 10 years, Warner, REM signs to Warner's and does, Green, which I thought was great, but Out of Time, which I couldn't stand. And they just become old, and this is the problem. Like, if you're a kid, it's like, you don't want to watch me on stage. I'm some fucking old dude. you want your own culture, you want your own excitement, and you want to be on stage with it. And it's like, this is sort of the issue. The bands are like, oh man, they don't feel old. They feel like they're continually making progress. But once they've made the progress and convinced the record labels it's viable, all of a sudden a million fucking teenagers get signed and get deals and get put on stage and become, essentially massive phenomena. Shoegaze is where it starts, and it happens really fucking fast. One of the things I want to mention, so again, 8 years ago, I did three DSLR nice videos about shoegaze that have just lived on or whatever. And in the second one, I talk about how I hated Swervedriver. I did hate Swervedriver when they first came out because I thought they were totally like macho and rocking and like just lame and like a weak ass facsimile of trying to be Dinosaur Jr. I just thought they sucked on their first record. And then I heard Duel. And I was like, well, you were wrong. You could not be more wrong. This band's fucking awesome. And then I heard like Never Lose That Feeling, and I got Mezcal Head, and I was just like, holy shit. But they only really nailed it on that record. Mezcal Head's it, like, for me. The first one I go back to a little bit. There are some songs on there that are, canonical, good, loud, rave down is really the one for me. I acquired these, way after the fact. The other one I had at the time, and not even at the time. I think I got this in college. So this is like 2 years or a year at least after it was out. Just fucking with the audio. That sucks, man. I'm sorry. If it's too bad, just tell me. I'll shut it off. If it's not worth doing, but I can't really do anything about the fucking wind, dude. I can try and move it. If it doesn't work, just tell me if it's that bad. I don't want to know if I can do it again another day. But anyway, if that's better, let me know. But anyway, the point being, once Ride proves it, once My Bloody Valentine proves it, the teen boppers. Ride were teen boppers, literally kids. But then, after they've built up this huge audience, then it's like Moose and Fan Club is a good example during this too. Because Creation Records, Alan McGee doesn't know what he wants to be. He's not sure if he wants to start a separate imprint for his dance music interest, and because he's done ecstasy for the first time, and now he's like the world's biggest fucking ecstasy cokehead ever, and he's just got to take it farther than everybody because that's what Alan McGee does, right? So Creation is really foundering. If Oasis didn't happen, they would have been fucking gone. Creation would not exist by 1994. They would have been gone if Oasis hadn't happened. They couldn't get shit going. The stuff they were releasing, if you go get those 2 CDs I showed, or just look at the track lists of the 2 CDs I think I showed in the last stream or one recently, American Pensioners on Ecstasy and Pensioners on Ecstasy, whatever. 91, 92, when Ride was doing well, and My Bloody Valentine was a big critical success, and Teenage Fan Club appeared on Saturday Night Live. Things are happening, but they're not making money. They're not selling volume yet. And so Creation was just about fucked. And so it's fascinating that, they're like the shoegaze label, but shoegaze isn't, putting steaks in the fridge. And so it takes this world, boiling the ocean scenario of these fucks, blowing up. This book is fucking terrible, by the way. There are so many books written about Britpop, and some are good, some are bad. This is great. You should really, if you have any interest at all, if you unless you can't even stomach Blur, Stuart McEnany is basically the Blur's guy. He's he's the Paul Morley to Joy Division. And this book, I don't know, there's 3 different versions with 3 different covers, but 3,862 days about Blur. It's just fucking hilarious. I've told before the story that I was at the show in Rhode Island where they were so drunk they basically got fucking thrown out by the club. That's one of the coolest things I've ever actually historically been at. I saw Nirvana at Roseland when Kurt OD'd, but there were a couple thousand people, I want to say, at that, which is funny because Nirvana just refused to play, staying their ass off, and are a very mainstream. Young kids look at those old, and that's why Ride would not go on tour with The Cure. Ride didn't open for The Cure on the Wish tour in '92, which is just still insane to me. I said it in 2 other streams, but that's why. You don't want to be under the shadow of The Cure. You don't want to be under the shadow of Depeche Mode. You want your own shit. And the band that really defines this problem is Blur. Because Blur, this is the actual box set with the Seymour single. It's one of the smartest things I ever did buying this. I could not fucking, I wasn't making that much when I got this. I was like super fucking broke after buying this for like a month. But yeah, this is the shit. This has like all their albums, you know, in deluxe 2 CD packaging and everything. It's just fucking awesome. And it goes for like hundreds of dollars. I mean, fucking stupid money now. But you know, Blur is the band that's on Food. I've told this whole story. They were Seymour. They were this drunken, stupid university type band. Dave Balfe signs them up. You know, he's from the Echo and the Bunnymen, Zoo Records, Bill Drummond scene. And they're just like all over these kids. And then they do a session with Andy Partridge from FTC. And it's like, when are we going to get rid of these fucking old guys? I've had it with the fucking boffins, man. Like, you guys had your fucking time. I want to do my own shit. And that's where British Image #1 comes from. That's where Damon and Graham and Alex are like, it's our time here now, or whatever the fuck. Like, they have been they've done a shitty baggy single. They have like a kind of half-ass Kinksy, almost shoegaze song in Sing. Leisure does real well, but they're like, this sucks. And then they try to do Pop Scene, which is so fucking tone deaf. I think it was 93, and Modern Life is Rubbish is the same kind of thing. It's like, the production sucks, and it's just the songwriting's not there yet. It takes them getting to this in 94. I mean, this comes out when Cobain kills himself. So, I mean, this image is one of the most iconic images in the history of British music. And in America, it's just not. But it comes out like right when Cobain kills himself. So Cobain's suicide fucks up Britpop in a way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The other really, truly, massively important thing that I never hear anyone talk about is that, and I don't know why, because it's so obvious, like it's such a huge deal, is there was no Glastonbury Festival in 1991. This is a fucking enormous deal in the history and evolution of this whole alternative thing, because both, you know, electronic techno music is blowing up, acid and mainstream shit like 808 State and the Shaman and all this is about to happen. The biggest festival, there is no Discord, dude. I deleted it in May. The biggest festival, the referendum on popular music in England, and really for the world in a way at that time, they took a year off. And it's a hugely important thing that I don't see talked about, because what happens is the Reading Festival gets all that. They get all the bands that are like the big hot new bands. And that is... It is a huge moment, because there's a couple of reasons behind it. One is that Blur gets a shot. So I told you in the other stream, there's this roller coaster tour that the Jesus and Mary chain tried to do, coming on the back of Lollapalooza, and bring that. You know, it's My Bloody Valentine, Dinosaur Jr., Blur, it's Jesus and Mary chain, fucking monster, crazy thing. But that's one thing, and that's sort of like, I think of that. I mentioned this kind of, and there's the Smiths. If C86 is anything, yeah, Teenage Fan Club on it too. It was a big, not ready to play, big state, festival like that. The Smiths, like, if nothing else, the Smiths prove that C86 proves rather that there can only be one Smiths. Like, all those C86 bands trying to be the Smiths were fucking terrible. The Smiths were lightning in a bottle, even though they sound like, you know, they've pulled from T-Rex, and they've pulled from the Kinks, and they've pulled from so many other historic sources, and they are a bit of a kettle in that way. They did not mind kind of purloining ideas, and it's Cemetery Gates is explicitly about this. Everybody wanted to be the Smiths, and the rush for that when the Smiths broke up was just mental. I mean, the Laws was like about the only band that was worth half a shit that came out of this crush of, you know, the fucking Blue Aeroplanes and all these fucking horrible bands that got deals, the Wooden Tops. I mean, what the fuck? You can't even imagine how milquetoast all this shit was. Try listening to this stuff now. Good fucking God, it is brutal. And so there's the C86 thing, but there's also, and there's Jesus and Mary chain, that's really harsh. But there's Spacemen 3. And Spacemen 3, you know, are famously this chaotic story of, very similar to the Reed brothers and JMC, who don't get along, right? But Spacemen 3 go in two different directions, right? Sonic Boom goes and does Spectrum and his own shit and becomes kind of a head. He becomes like a Julian Cope figure for the most part. But Jason Pierce formed Spiritualized, who managed to create this soft landing and become a regal Britpop band with Ladies and Gentlemen, We Were Floating in Space, which is not their best record. I prefer Electric Mainline and even Laser Guided Melodies way more than Ladies and Gentlemen. But that record and Live at the fucking Royal Albert Hall, yeah, this is the original one, not that fucking reissue. It's so fucking good. It's too quiet. Like the mastering is super fucking low, so you gotta crank it. But man, take good care of it on this. Oh, anyway, Spiritualized, like the Verve, is able to do this. Almost no other bands. All Shoegaze is detonated. It's so fucking over. The joke I make in the Shoegaze video. When Oasis happens, they destroy Shoegaze. So think about all these bands like fucking Loop, the Telescopes, all these like weird sort of heady shoegazy bands that were just chancers, and then like these awful pinup bands like Revolver, they just sound like a fucking boy band made out of Ride songs, which is literally what they were. Just want to tell you, and it's just crazy. There are bands who can make that, like the Verve were a fucking straight up like Slide Away, just total shit. It's a little bit more to the songwriting maybe, but like look at this, right? Skyscraper, like early Boo Radley's is like, it's even close to Chameleons in terms of it being washed out, Kitchens of Distinction, like 80s jangle into shoegaze, Boo Radley's, and then they do it, boom, you know, Wake Up Boo. Like it's fucking crazy. These bands that were able to, they had some sort of loyalty just as being English bands that people were able to tolerate that, okay, yeah, you were like a corny fucking cheesy shoegaze chancer band, but now you're, you know, even Moose did this. Moose, by the time they do the late stuff with XYZ and Little Bird, Are You Happy in Your Cage? They become like a Kinksy. They even have an album in 2000 called Highball Me. That's like bad, trendy exotica shit. They stuck around forever. And yeah, Lush, I hate. I mean, I straight up never liked that band. Full respect to them as people and everything. But they worked with Robin Guthrie, so that first record with Robin Guthrie is the only one I can even tolerate. But they were clearly, and Curve too, who I love and defend despite their totally, you know, opportunistic backstory. They could easily be at Lush, or at the time, fucking just like there was a faction of critics who loved Lush because they were so young, right? Not because they were good songwriters, which they fucking never were. I mean, Robin Guthrie created that out of tape. He made that album out of nothing. They could barely fucking play. Okay, I don't condemn them because they weren't polished and good performers. I just thought, like, what's the fucking point? It's like they were the most rubber stamped shoegaze. Okay, it's shoegaze, but there's women in the band, and it's like, well, you know, Tony Halliday's in Curve. Like, everything around Lush was just wrong. It just didn't work. They were too young. Everything got forced on them. Similar to Slowdive, like way too much attention. And then like they had that awful American marketing thing that's so infamous where SBK was like, hey, we'll give you a free copy of the album if you put photocopies of your, send us pictures of yourself putting up 50 flyers that you can make yourself on a photocopier of fucking Slowdive in your city. Who the fuck greenlit that shit? It's so bad. But anyway, the gap in Glastonbury is really big because 90, the last year they did it, is like the most 1990 lineup you could ever imagine. It's fucking The Cure, Sinead O'Connor, who else was on it? The big Happy Mondays, Jesus Jones. Like, it's all that shit. And you don't have like the big second stage thing yet. Because as I said, like, the watering and feeding of indie as a thing that's worth investing in, it's not there. So you have weird small bands like Stage for Glastonbury. And Galaxy 500, that was I think it was one of their last shows. No, Copenhagen, they went to Copenhagen and released a CD of that Copenhagen show, which is beautiful. The version of Don't Let Our Youth Go to Waste, Jonathan Richman's Don't Let Our Youth Go to Waste is so good. What else? Oh, and then Julian Cope was supposed to play, and he like freaked out or something. He didn't go. It's in his book. Head On. But World Party 2 was on that year. I think it's so much shit. I love that dude. I mean, he wrote fucking She's the One. Come on. Respect. I said it in another stream a while back, months ago. But what happens then is 91, you got Nirvana's going off. Sonic Youth is huge, signed to DGC. Dinosaur Jr. is prepping their Warner Brothers record. All these shoegaze bands are everywhere. You know, fucking Chapter House. Grebo's blowing up. Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine. Ned's Atomic Dustbin. Fucking Pop Will Eat Itself. All this shit is going crazy on 90, and Glastonbury totally blows it. Swervedriver plays Reading. I think it's still called Reading, not Reading Leeds. But anyway, this is the reconstitution of the Reading Festival, and it comes off with 2 stages right out of the gate. And it's such a big deal that's not talked about, because all of these bands, you know, even Mercury Rev played it. It was such a big moment, and Nirvana played. I mean, it's not the Nirvana Reading Festival. That's 92, when it's like, okay, everything has turned over. Because 92 is like, now by even L7, Nirvana brings L7 into, they got them on Reading in 92. And the Beastie Boys have blown up, you know, like, the Beastie Boys are now okay now. They're cool. And even Pavement is on it. So this and PJ Harvey too. She was so huge out of the gate, and I wasn't that into Sheila and a Gig or Dry. I was a convert with Rid of Me. Rid of Me. Oh my god. Oh my god. Rid of Me is just one other one. That is such a goddamn record. Anyway, so when we talk about this whole, you know, third part of bands wanting their own identity and their own control and their own image, in America, this happens with this retreat from, it's so corny, it's such a like Gen X, you know, reality bites thing, you know, this resistance to advertising that Generation X was supposedly famous for. So like the Breeders like are huge, like they're on MTV. Cannonball's a big hit, you know. Nirvana, #1 fucking whatever, you know. Oh yeah, To Bring You My Love is awesome. Catherine, the demo of Catherine, if you get the demos of To Bring You My Love or whatever the white record was around that, or Is This Desire, I can't remember. There's a demo of Catherine that is so fucking haunting. And then you got to get the 4-track album. There's a CD of demos, PJ Harvey demos, where she's wearing a bikini with a camera around her neck, where she does, there's a song called Driving on there that I don't think was ever done. It is one of the, she was such a fucking howling fucking gale, man. You just could fucking, she's terrifying. She's like frightening to listen to. Don't You Wish You Never Met Her, man. The end of that song, I've made the comparison before. It's like 100 Years by The Cure. So what happens, right, when you've got stuff like this on the charts and on MTV, right? And then like, you want to be more inscrutable. So like indie and credibility and awareness becomes part of your identity and your identity. And like, you're not getting any juice off having heard of Nirvana or having heard of the Breeders. You got to hear of Silver Jews and Pavement and Yo La Tengo, you know, and then like, and then it just goes on, and Unrest, right? And you got to hear Helium, and you got to hear fucking, you know, a million bands. There's the Trigger Cut CD. Why did I fucking bought this? Like, yeah, I needed Sue Me Jack. Actually, no, So Stark You're a Skyscraper. That's why I bought this at the time. And why was it made in Canada? Why the fuck was Matador making everything in Canada back then? But yeah, like, you know, Verses, and then like later it becomes so much of a self-referential thing that you get like, you know, Lou Barlow's Folk Implosion on the Kids soundtrack, like sounding like shit, 4-track, whatever, becomes this like rejection of the mainstream. And then like, you know, that's not like it just happens here. You got like Hood was one of my favorite bands later on, you know, that did the same sort of thing. This is a much later record, but like Hood put out 7 inches nonstop, you know, that no one ever heard, with this same kind of mindset of just like, you know, rejection of, you know, mainstream or the process and whatever. And in America, it just derails everything. It just like, do you want us to make music possible for you? Do you want music in your life? Because like, it costs money to do this. And if you guys are going to like all get so fucking uptight about what's cool, and you know what I mean? It really was this awful tension, in a way. But it was, you know, it was good for the bands because MTV had seen, you know, that this can happen. These bands can blow up. And, you know, and Helium had videos, and you know, a lot of these bands did. I don't think that Unrest ever did a push there, but, you know, they pretty much blow out after Perfect Teeth. They're done. And then he tries to do all sorts of other stuff. I mean, he seems to have been kind of a control freak or whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, so you have this rejection of the format. You have the rejection of the way in which things are marketed to you, the rejection of the radio, a rejection of MTV. And then that in itself is sort of a liberation. So early on, it's kind of cool. And it's cool that a band like Yo La Tengo is so much more important as an American kind of rock record. And Yo La Tengo's obvious, you know, he's a record critic, their awareness of Burrito Brothers and all these things, and, you know, rock's past and everything. Not to suggest that they had the finesse or the songcraft of any of that, but, like, you know, he's a deeply credentialed music fan. And obviously Georgia's background is too. So Yo La Tengo's Painful is like a watershed record. And Electro Pure, the follow-up, was a nice, you know, it built on it. It's not as good, I don't think. The playing is a lot better. It's a much tighter record, and a lot of the adventurousness is stronger here. Painful is a truly depressing, downcast record, but for that reason, you know, in '93 when I first, you know, when it came out, God, it was such a big deal for, like, mopey college kids. But, you know, again, is that really something that we need to, you know, be wistful for? I mean, personally, sure, but certainly not socially. And so in America, this spins out into the explosion, as I said in the last one, the explosion of just a million fucking indie labels in every city, and tons of different kind of sort of possessive, almost paranoid local scenes. I gotta say, like, that the flavor of that was, like, super precocious, in some cases ostentatious. I mean, when you think about the makeup, Ian Spurius's Go-Go project. You know, it was awesome. I mean, there were certain bands where you just wanted to cheer for them because they got that mix right, but there were other bands where it was like, yeah, take it down a notch. And I would say Dub Narcotic was one where it was sort of like, okay, you know, Calvin, dude, you know, I mean, yeah, sure. Scarin', the Built to Spill song, and you know, Fuck Shit Up, which, you know, John Spencer, fucking Blues Explosion is another huge thing at this time. Fucking Extra Width, Orange, Jesus Christ. His run 93 to 98 with Acme was monster. And then, of course, Winona Ryder appears in the fucking MTV video with him. And so does John C. Reilly, right? Which is, fuck, what? In 98. I think he's in that, right? But, and of course, Giovanni Ribisi, I think, is also in it. You know, in America, it has this whole tension that I've been talking about, it's a tension that's certainly born of the privilege to be able to not need a record label to help you. You know what I'm saying? Like, isn't that kind of weird in a way? Nobody ever talks about that. And I'm not one of these privileged crusaders, certainly, because I grew up with every advantage you could have. But I think that when we look back on it, what happens in England is all done with the record labels, because it's not like there's not a million Sarah records out there. There's some, you know, sure, but it's sort of like known you're doing a single to try and get someone's, like, this pattern is more established, and the size and scale of the country, which I constantly talk about, is far more important in keeping this sort of a comprehensible thing. Like, what people are doing in England is something that people in England can kind of understand. Trends have a national, sweet, you know, northern, southern thing, but in America, it is so much more parochial and slightly paranoid and regional, and it's pretty small-minded in a way. Yeah, Peel was sort of considered kind of whatever by that point, I would say. Certainly the things he was championing were getting more and more you know, willfully obscure. I think, you know, in the late 90s, when certainly by the time Spice Girls and shit happens, Peel is like, we need to go back to the pop group, and we need to go back to tools you can trust, and like bands playing on trash cans. You know, I mean, it's just kind of predictable. But there's some really interesting figures. This is a book, if you really like, you know, obviously I talked about the Blair book at the beginning. Tim Burgess telling stories. This is pretty remarkable, because Charlatans were another one of those bands that England embraced as their own, because they were kids when, you know, I said this in the last one, you know, they were little kids who were in Manchester, like and his mom knew Peter Hook's mom, or knew Tony Wilson as a Tony Wilson's dad or something, whatever the story. And he like she literally I think his mom gave Peter Hook the tape or something. Like it's that cute, and shows how kind of things like the Hacienda and how these scenes, while they resulted in massive record sales, were sort of ground level in one way. It's just a great story. And while the Charlatans totally died, after Some Friendly in America, they tried to back him. Weirdo got shown on MTV, but it was just like, nope, Nirvana, that's all we need. Big American rock and roll. And Kurt Cobain totally felt that. I mean, he felt like a fucking asshole everywhere he went, to the point where he was like paying for half Japanese to play at a fucking festival in South America just to get something back. I mean, he brought the Raincoats out. He made DGC reissue all the Raincoats records, made Sub Pop do the Vaselines, Way of the Vaselines, wrote essays about all these things, because he felt guilty. He felt like a fucking clown. The same way, maybe someone like Jarvis Cocker felt at times when, like, This Is Hardcore came out. And the reason it's hard for me to talk about, or as much about Britpop, I'm not British or English, I wasn't there. Although, as I said, a couple of my best friends were, and I was dating a girl from there. But that's obvious. The other part is that it is so well covered and documented, in all these books, and in stuff like this, and in the documentary Live Forever. And the primary participants are so willing to talk about it. And as much as like this, someone actually in the Discord months and months ago told me about this. I didn't know. Phil Savage wrote a book about being a PR whip during this time, which is pretty fucking hilarious. Especially if you have any interest in the love triangle of Brett Anderson, Justine, Fishman, and Damon Albarn from Blur. I mean, so the nuances of hip-hop, which this is the stuff that's never really talked about. Live Forever sort of addresses it when they talk about. Thank you. Live Forever sort of addresses it when they talk about Damon, being from Leytonstone and then moving to Colchester. Well, they don't talk about the fact that his dad managed a soft machine and put on Yoko Ono's, one of her biggest happenings, and was an arts professor in Colchester, and that's why they moved there. He was you're going to get tarred with that brush anyway if you're down in London, and Justine's dad's he was worth 10, 15 million pounds. I mean, I don't know. He's a millionaire. She comes from outsized wealth to the point where she's a painter. And so I think that there's a lot of good documentary evidence out there. There's not as much cultural interrogation, but the Live Forever documentary, because they get John Savage in there, does interrogate some of it. I think that the whole aspect of Liam Gallagher is fucking absurd. I think that whole note they try and strike is so fucking dumb. The idea that lad culture has some homosexual undercurrent to it is just so dumb. All macho behavior has a latent homosexuality to it. It wasn't unique to Britpop, but So again, Blur's tried to do this. They've tried to put their foot down. They did, I might as well just pull it out. They did Modern Life is Rubbish, which is rubbish. It is. It sucks. It's fucking terrible. And they have that awful thing of the song titles, fucking Colin Zeal and shit. It's so corny. And it's like, dude, of course everyone thought you would want to work with Annie Partridge. But by the time they get it and they nail it, yeah, sure, the Cobain suicide fucks this up for them. This record wasn't fucking going anywhere. This was a new proposition. And the worst thing, the most annoying thing, is that Damon Albarn is not particularly forthcoming in that Live Forever documentary. He's still real fucking salty and sour and bitter about all that shit, about how he came off and how he looked like a fucking complete, just, spoiled little London brat during this whole period. He's still very guarded with the past in that documentary, He tries to make jokes and they fall so fucking brick flat. And he's like, I changed after that. I changed. No, you're who you are, dude. And you know what? You won. You fucking won. You aged into your looks better than anyone. You came up with gorillas. By the time you get to the late 90s in song 2, you're making £3 million off one fucking song. You didn't have to be Oasis and rewrite Gary Glitter and Beatles songs and fall on your face. As Blur never embarrassed themselves. They were always trying to be innovative, even if it sucks, even if they failed. Like, I Think Tank is trash to me. I'm not into that record. But that record was big in like 2002 or 3 or whatever. A lot of fucking indie kids the world over were into fucking Think Tank. I didn't feel it, but like, this is fucking conquest. Just like, Bittersweet Symphony is going to come out here. You're going to have, Bittersweet Symphony is going to come out here. You're going to have the regal end. If you're about to get Robbie Williams, you're about to get the Travises and the Coldplays of the world. And these guys are still fucking innovating. And I still look at this record and, the one after it. I mean, BeatleBum is just one of the fucking, the Travises and the Coldplays of the world. And these guys are still fucking innovating. And I still look at this record and, the one after it. I mean, BeatleBum is just one of the fucking crowning glories of this whole thing. The BeatleBum is like everyone wants to talk about how Be Here Now is the end of Britpop. I like a couple Travis, to be honest. It's a good record. I mean, and Tied to the 90s is fucking hilarious. I give them a lot of credit for what they do, but it's just that when they were doing it, you couldn't win. You were a fucking knobber. If you were playing guitar ballads in 97, 98, like, you were fucking not cool. And the only thing that happened for Travis is that Coldplay were so much less cool that they, sort of, anyway. I look at Trim Trab, like 13 is still great. The Trim Trab on Park Live, the Reformation Park Live album is, it's so, oh my God, it just crushes. Like, in a way that the album version can't, because you want that electric fucking live guitar to just, oof. I mean, they still fully had it here. Tender is great. I just thought Think Tank was kind of a dud, but that's fine. And the coolest thing too is like Oasis, all Oasis box sets suck. They're all complete bullshit, like corny fucking 180 gram, whatever. None of the remastering is good. When Noel tried to remaster stuff and do his new mix of, you know what I mean? Holy shit. Like, dude, stop fucking with your legacy. Like, the only thing, and we've talked about it a million times, of any value is Noel's audio commentaries on those DVDs, which is very valuable and fucking hilarious and better than like 8 Ricky Gervais stand-up routines. Like, it's so good. It's so good listening to him just rip on himself, rip on videos, rip on video making. I mean, it's like, pour it into me. But this box set, this Blur box set with the Seymour 7-inch, and this awesome fucking book with like everything about them, all these interviews, like rare sleeves, like, this is fucking fan service, man. It is so fucking good. And that was why I went into debt to buy it back when, and why it probably deserves to go for hundreds of dollars now for anybody who had the foresight and would be willing to let go of it. It's just, it is everything. It's Blur. It's the Blur box 21, and Oasis doesn't have that object, Yeah, they have a master plan, but then like 2 minutes after the master plan, they're putting out the fucking Benson and Hedges fucking single box sets, and they're like in Japan, they put out the fucking single box that goes for like $4,000 in the Vox box, right? The fucking Vox box with the Vox amplifier on it, like the biggest reissue, repackage, whatever. While they're still going, while they're still selling millions of singles, Oasis is guilty of this. They diluted themselves really badly, and the songwriting becoming diluted didn't help that. So Blur wins. Blur, whatever Britpop was, Blur wins it. And I think they're going to triumvirate. There's only really the 2 records, but the important thing to talk about really is Suede, because Brett was there first, and '93 was like Suede's fucking year, way more than any of these bands. Oasis is just getting the Columbia white label out. Blur, like I said, Modern Life is tanking. Their label hates them. They're just in a like major funk, and they're getting shit on by the press. Suede, I mean, he's so fucking gorgeous. Brett Anderson, so like when Animal Nitrate came out, when that, and he just, I mean, just like Brian Ferry, yeah, he aged so well. Oh my God. But, when that video came out, when Suede hit the scene, it was like, I mean, he looks sort of like Dave Vanian from The Damned. He just has this classic, vampiric, perfect British genetic facial structure. Excuse me. He's so goddamn gorgeous. But what they were trying to do the service they're giving to British culture, let's say, before Blur ever comes up with a way to do this, is like basically glam. You know, there's shiny curtains and he's wearing a lame fucking blouse or whatever. And man, that could not have really died harder in America. It was just like, oh, it's another fucking British band, whatever. But like, oh my God, we are the pigs. Like, oh my God, we are the pigs. And like, I mean, you know, the cover too, and like everything about it. This is what everybody had been waiting for since the demise of the Smiths. The Gap, like the Laws. Okay, the Laws were good. Lee Mavers was an incredible fucking songwriter, but like he's writing skiffle songs. I mean, this is not. It doesn't have any of that, you know, androgyny, that you know, celibate, Morrissey frustration. Everything that the Smiths were is this, you know, the iconography of it. That first Suede record is like, whoa, holy shit. And I don't know that comparison is remembered enough or understood outside England. And it wasn't really keyed on at the time, I wouldn't say. Because certainly they don't sound like the Smiths. I'm just saying the place they occupied and how quickly and totally they were embraced. And yes, as mentioned, by the print, you know, industry. And that's in the Live Forever documentary, the famous Yanks Go Home cover of Select with Brett, you know, like showing his belly and all that shit. You know, but then it just becomes silly. These bands and the money and everything that's going around, it just becomes fucking silly. You get Bjork on the cover of the NME with Evan Dando in a dress. Evan Dando and Brett Anderson are like doing coke together backstage. Like, it's what the fuck is going on? Like, all of a sudden everybody's famous. Everybody who's in the band is famous in like the space of 18 months. And it's just like, this book doesn't even come close to describing. Like, there's a guy I can't fucking stand, who was at Loaded Magazine and is such a fucking disheveled lump of shit in that Live Forever documentary. And he's such an obnoxious prick, but he makes an important point, which is that every day from like 92 to 97 was a nonstop fucking party if you were in the music industry in England and or the arts or anything in media. The media explosion, and again, I mentioned this in the last one, it's true in America too. You're on the back of a massive economic upswing, roaring 90s economy. The personal computer technology mainframes are changing everything, and there's so much fucking money. And in England, you have festival culture, and you have raves, and all this shit happening. And so it really feels like, you know, fucking whatever, the you know, the swinging London days or something. Like, it's not just hagiography or you know, nostalgia. Everybody lived through it, and they were it was definitely still the scene that celebrates itself as much as shoegaze ever was, you know, because the media and the printers and everything, or the photographers and the paparazzi are there every night, and it's like boom, 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 Kate Moss, done, you know, falling out of a fucking cab. You don't get this again until Trash in the 2000s, you know. You don't get it until Amy Winehouse and Pete Doherty and then Amy Winehouse. You don't get it again in that way. You sort of, I mean, you know, I think the Strokes were like a false start in a way. Interpol and the Strokes and those bands, they really wanted that to blow up, but it, like, there was like it kind of fluffed until you had like Rich Kids and shit, and society aristocrat people kind of throwing money at Trash and stuff. The new Salem track's blowing up. Good. I mean, I've been a stand for Salem for fucking ever. I mean, I love everything they've ever done. I think Jack's a fucking genius. I think they're just the fucking greatest. Like, just, you know, fully. I don't, whatever. I let them become a TikTok dance. I don't give a shit. They can be a fucking emote on Fortnite for all I care. I'll buy it. Anything that happens for Salem, good. Net good. I know they had that mixtape that they deleted or whatever that came out 3 or 4 months ago, like in February or some shit. I love that. And we distributed that on the Dropbox for the Chord back when we were doing that, which people are still running it, I guess. But or one. The Dropbox is still there, but I'm not. Someone else administering it. I've actually uploaded a couple things to it because I was re-ripping. One of the reasons I haven't been doing streams is I'm converting my entire collection to lossless because of COVID and I have nothing to do, and it's time consuming. And so yeah, I've come across some funny stuff that I like forgot about for sure. They put it up on their YouTube, the mixtape. Yeah, the NTS mix. Yeah, it's fucking great. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad. I hope some good shit's happening for Salem and they make some money. I just want them to. They need to call me, and we need to do just an EP of Nitzareb covers, and then we'll be good. So yeah, I mean, again, going back over what I've talked about, right? New Orders, Cures, Depeche Modes, Replacements, Husker Du's, REMs. These bands took almost a decade to make it. And then the second they did, it's like they're old, and the kids don't want that. It's not cool. You need young, cool, good-looking fucking people smashing guitars. You need, I guess, Richie fucking slashing his arms up and shit. I mean, that's exciting drama. It's present tense or whatever. It just went in such a weird way. All those old bands, like, they sold millions of records or whatever, but it created this sort of drive to distinguish or just create distinction with younger music, and that created the indie explosion in America, and it created Britpop essentially in England. Yeah, wow, John Lydon's on stage. He's fucking 30. Like, I want to fucking hang out with New Order. Like, Jesus, it's so there's. So they had to plant their own flags, right? Oh God, I can't stand Manic Street Preachers, but like, they were an absolute explosion of rock, RAWK, swagger. They were so needed, at that time as a cultural flashpoint. They were extremely necessary. And so there's that, there's a roaring economy, and then there's this weird thing, like I said, that festival culture gets totally rebooted by rave and the ascendance of these mainstream electronic techno bands like the Orb and the Shaman and all that. So it's a really weird transition, I guess is what I'd say. And it's this turning away from the middle of the road stuff and the stuff that later becomes like, we talk about the Spice Girls, we talk about the 90s, but like, and I'll talk about this when I'll do an IDM video stream at some point. The second half of the 90s is like all these bands that didn't earn it. Boards of Canada, fucking Air, Alpha, all this fucking milquetoast shit that is basically, coming out of A&Ring the shit out of everything. And it just was all so fucking boring. I mean, that was why I got into inscrutable electronic music and Warp and Seafeel and all of this, was because the indie music was boring the ass off me. It was all participatory. Like, it was at the point where, like, you formed a band just so you could play a show, because that was like the only social event you could really, you know what I mean? Like, all those, oh God, Air was such a fucking joke to me. I'm sorry. All those indie bands just, they're all writing the same fucking song. They still are. They're still writing the same songs that have been written forever by indie, jangle guitar bands. And I've mentioned the laundry list of them in other videos that I, probably one of the early basement streams where I'm thumbing through Archers of Loaf 7 inches and fucking Guided by Voices and all this stuff. It's just, indie becomes about like, just you get up there and you do it. And then other people come and watch you get up and do it. And it just doesn't go anywhere. It's just a flat circle. For things to go anywhere, particularly in the US, becomes hard again. It's what I associate the late 90s with is a generation gap. Sort of like my generation just into, awful mannered bullshit like fucking The Sea and Cake and Thrill Jockey and all this fucking shit. The video about math rock. and you know, across most of my videos, I talk about these periods, and post rock. I have a whole video about, you know, yeah, Bowery Electric. They were good. They had the Gold record that was good. And you know, there's a million bands. Oh God, my brain is not working. I'm sorry. What's the band? Independency, Bar Psychosis. You know, this all those bands in Talk and stuff. Like everyone starts floating, and Slint even. Everyone just starts going to the most meditative, you know, down tempo, like you say. You know, even Ninja Tune stuff. And my point is that this just doesn't have any image really attached to it, apart from the image of being aware of it. Like your awareness, the transaction and the paying attention is the thing. It's Scenester-ism. You know, it's all it is. And I hated that about it. I did like a lot of the music, but I just, I mean, I'm a misanthrope anyway. I don't know. Point being, it was much easier. People in, you know, like pop culture in England, they don't have as much of a paranoia, I would say, around. It's kind of like, if you're like that, like if you're like Tom York, most people are going to be like, ah, fucking get over yourself or whatever. You know what I mean? Like Tom York has that famous comment he makes in the Meeting People is Easy documentary, where he's like, any band that makes it, you know, we assume you've cheated. And it's like, yeah, there are people who think like that. There are precious indie people who think like that. But I think for the most part, it's like, come on. And, you know, the enduring success of a band like Spiritualized and you know, the Verve and just sort of the cheering for someone, they embrace that more than we do here. You know, it's a massive generalism, but where does Flying Saucer Attack fit into things? I mean, they would be part of the, he would be part of the, like, where does Third Eye Foundation fit into it? Like, just, it's another obscure, like, Jessamine or whatever. It's just another obscure, willfully obscure indie thing. Like, here's my inscrutable, hard to listen to, agonizing fucking noise death music. I don't know. I am one of the guys, you know, fucking killed himself, the Azusa Plane guy. What's his name? John something. He was like tangentially tight with a lot of people that I was like. I didn't go to Terrastock. Terrastock was this big indie thing in '97 in Rhode Island. I was supposed to go, and then I just was like, I think I had a date that night. Honest to God, I think I had a date instead. But Maura Johnston went. She was there. You know, he was there playing. I think it was all put together by Damon from Galaxy 500. But Terrascope, yeah, sorry, did I say Terrastock? What the fuck? I have the album of it. I got the zine like right after, because Maura came back and she was like, it was really fucking cool. Like, it was awesome. You know, it was like a full-on Fillmore fucking psych 60s thing. Like, it was not normal indie. It was something else. I don't know that I bought all of it. The Silver Apples thing, oh my God, the fucking Silver Apples resurgence of worship of Silver Apples. And what was the other one? I mentioned this also in another stream early on, I think. The United States, right? Wasn't that the band? Yeah, none of that was my scene. Dead Kid Dance, yeah, they're good mid-90s record. The live one, Toward the Within, that's all you need for me. Oh shit, I'm saying that. I didn't know that. One of the guys from Silver Apples died days ago. Whoops, I tend to do that. It tends to be the way things go for me. Well, sorry, man. Yeah, Ozzy's drummer died too. I don't know. Can't win, man. Can't win. Yeah, United States of America. Yeah, Beavis Frond. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. And Red Crayola, Beavis Frond. Like all that shit got totally reified. Oh my God. Toots died. Yeah, I saw that. I did see that. Yeah, he was on one of the original ones. Yeah. Why are we going through? Oh, because I brought up Azusa Plane, and that kid. Well, he was a kid, really. I don't know his story. I mean, awful. I don't know. You read the essays, because I got the Rocket Girl box set. She did. She had such a it's none of my business, but you know, she had a very strong affinity for him, and Henry Owings has an essay in there too from Chunklet. He loved him. He was on he was on one or two Chunklet comps that I have. I think it's called like 15 minutes for $1 or something. Yeah, he had like according to what everyone said, he had like, I don't know, if it was aphasia or something. I don't forget what they call it. Hypophagia. He had some kind of inner ear problem. But I guess he had all kinds of other problems, like emotionally and I guess you would classically say maybe neurotically. And yeah, it sucks. I was a big fan of his drone stuff. The orange record with like the Illuminati triangle on it is so incredible. It's like the stuff James Ferraro did that I like, and like Andrew Chalk and all those ambient, you know, drone bands that I love and talk about. That record and a few of the other 7 inches and stuff, definitely get that comp. Hyperacusis, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, he's all over the place because there was a period where he got a band and it's just fucking unlistenable. And that was the stuff he did at Terrascope, I think, if I recall correctly. But he had a band, like a trio, Tycho, Magnetic, whatever. Yeah, that's the one. But then there's another one like, is it the one that's like America is Dreaming of something or other? There's one that's just awful. There's 2 songs, No Future and No Fun. And it's just like, just banging on shit. I mean, it's awful. I mean, he was just all over the place with his inspiration. And, you know, clearly a lot of that had to do with him. I mean, I have tinnitus really bad. I just ignore it. You know, I follow Steve Martin's dictum. He just said, you just have to ignore it or you fucking kill yourself. It'd drive you crazy. You just have to ignore it. I mean, I have all kinds of other fucking bullshit. You guys know, I mean, weird fucking dumb shit I've dealt with medically that is so annoying. You know, but you just got to plug through that shit. I feel for people who are drawn down by things that are obviously more paralyzing, you know, like I wrote a book about Ian Curtis. What the fuck? I've been through, you know, this and you know, ultimately for me, you know, when you've gone through it, like suicide is just like, you can't do that to other people. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, you know, like people like tend to say like, man, if I got cancer, I'd get on a boat and I just no, you wouldn't. You'd fight for every fucking second of breath you had left. Because it's the only one you're gonna have left, right? And like if you have kids and family and significant others, whatever it is, like you can't cheat them and you can't put them in that position. It's fucked. I don't know. You know, Ian Curtis is a fucking child, man. He was 23 when he pulled this shit. Like, if you're that young, and Jason was, yeah, he was young. I have sympathy. You know, I don't have a lot of empathy. You can't. But self-destruction. You know, we were talking a lot about this today. We talked about Richie from Manic Street, man. I don't know. It's a tough thing. Ugly. It's always there. It's always there in the arts, man. Always around. So yeah, I mean, those are the broad strokes of hopefully getting out of talk. Oh, I've mentioned Belter Space before, but since this has Shoegaze in the title, you gotta interrogate Belter Space. If you don't know them, oh God, please don't talk about Starflyer 59. I already ripped on them in one of the Shoegaze videos. In fact, I ripped on the album you're talking about, Silver, with that song Hazelwood. They're okay. They're fine. The thing about Starflyer 59 is they're like Jesus freaks. They're like a Christian band. They were on like Tooth and Nail, I think, right? At one point, like, yeah, I can't deal with any of that shit. I mean, they had a red record and a gold record, and then they had the silver record, and I was like, whatever. But this is a band you really got to fucking get. They used to be Gordons, I think. They were like a New Zealand band. Just like the song Shadow, the song X that's on this is the big. These are really fucking like, it's like helmet shoegaze. Like they're hard. They're not fucking like a. I mean, the lyrics are breathy because the guy's not a strong singer, but like they absolutely, yeah, the Gordons were a flying gun band, right? Yeah, but they went on forever. They have records into the 2000s, and they're not bad. Like Capsule, this late record, Argonaut was a good one. Yeah, I mean, it's not all gold, but man, good stuff. Like particularly if you're thinking about a drone band, like a Band of Susans you're mentioning, this is exactly that kind of thing, but a little bit poppier, brighter, and droney. But like guitar drone has always been a thing for me, and like this song X is like one of the best guitar drone rock songs like ever. So I forgot to mention them, but I did pull that. And so this is just like, I just wanted to like sort of sum up what this environment felt like at the time, you know, and what were the reasons things happened the way they did. Obviously, the nature of how they did and didn't happen in England and versus America. But after this, things just get really different. And you know, I could do a joke video. I don't know if it could be a half an hour even on jam bands, but you know, there's such a dramatic shift after his suicide, man. After Cobain blows his head off, it's just like I can't. It's just it's so hard to describe in a way, but certainly we get this big division. And I talk about it, I guess I would say, in the old goth video I did. I talk about how goth is like where the people who want to kind of control their own narrative go after punk becomes bullshit. Indie, especially in the United States, is kind of where everyone goes after Nirvana just blows up too big. And suddenly, while you've been spending a few years thinking Kurt Cobain's singing to you, and that like you totally identify with his shit, now all of a sudden everybody's crying about Kurt Cobain and wearing 1967 and 1994 shirts around school. And you're like, wait, what the fuck? You're a total fucking white hat. Like, dude, you're on the lacrosse team. Hold the fuck up. Like, where were you drinking under the tree before school last week wearing all black? I didn't fucking see you. And that was the biggest thing because it changed. And I talked to Nick Sylvester about this a lot, which is the next kids that were just like 3-5 years younger than me, such a different experience in the 90s. Because like by the time they're like, you know, they're like 12, 13, Nirvana's on the radio. That is so different from being 16, 17 when Nirvana's on the radio. And their experiences, and I talked to Sean Collins about it too in this podcast. I keep telling you, because we're doing the 90s chart sweeps. Definitely listen to those, because he had the same experience where like just a couple of years after us, Rage Against the fucking Machine, the Cranberries, exactly. Oh wait, she sings on, is she on that Moose record? Dolores O'Riordan sings on one, just like Rachel Goswell from Slow Dive. Dolores from Cranberries was like a session singer during Shoegaze. I forget which goddamn band it was. Just look it up on Discogs. She backed up a couple of one at least, pretty big Shoegaze band before she got her own band together with Cranberries. Who, you know, like every band at that time started out with like a Shoegaze demo. Can you imagine the landfill of fucking demo cassettes of bands in 1991 and 1992? English bands. Like, I would love to like swim in a pool of those cassettes. There are thousands, hundreds at least, of just totally unheard milquetoast boilerplate shoegaze bands that nobody ever heard. I mean, I tried to do a little chart sweep of it as a joke in the Shoegaze video with like Ecstasy of St. Teresa and all this stuff. But anyway, yeah, somebody fucking Google that shit up. Who did Dolores O'Riordan back in the studio during Shoegaze? Really important stuff we need to know. Or not, I don't know. So yeah, and then at that point, it just becomes festival culture, like writ large festival culture. By 93, when Suede has their big year, and then 94, Blur wins, they run the table at the Brit Awards. And that's the big thing. Parklife wins, I think, 4 or 5 or 20 Brits, which Oasis doesn't, for Definitely Maybe. That's when it just goes fucking silly sauce, and you're about to get Common People, and you're about to get this just complete orgy of consumerism. And every week there's another single kids are going to buy. Every fucking week kids are spending 5, 10, 20 pounds of probably their parents' money on some fucking well, like a guitar, that band in the early 2000s I reviewed on Pitchfork. There was another one that was like a backbeat drum loop shoegaze band. Yeah, you think about the amount of money that was pouring into the British music industry. Tony Blair gets up on fucking stage in 94. I think it was 94 at that Brit in November. And he's like, rock and roll is important to this country. Just like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. So too, U2, Irish, and the Smiths broke up 7 years ago, are important. Like, what the fuck? He couldn't have looked any more like a fucking absolute dickhead. which he was. But it goes worse than that. Then it becomes the Gallagher. Well, it becomes Noel letting Tony Blair co-opt Oasis, and like '95, all of it. The Great Escape comes out and it sucks. And Blur suddenly like, oh, Blur's not looking too good, like they're on the outs now. And again, that valley, or it's a peak and it's a valley. Financially, Nebworth is the peak for Oasis. And the Tony Blair thing and Alan McGee becoming political figures for a minute. This is the social peak of this new, whatever Britpop is. And all these Instamatic bands, fucking These Animal Men, I don't know, you pick Menswear, what the fuck ever, there's a million fucking bands like the Auteurs and Saint Etienne even, like all these fucking Echo Belly that you could go forever. The Britpop bands that were doing it well for a couple of, like Ocean Color Scene were already out. Select famously was a Blur magazine, right? They were all about the culture club, Duran Duran aspects of Blur, and they rocked it. But yeah, Sleeper ends up on the Trainspotting soundtrack. I mean, Nebworth and Trainspotting, right? These are like big peaks. Elastica, it's fucking stupid I didn't mention them when I talked about Slade, because Elastica were blowing up instantly, faster than Blur. Like Justine was totally overshadowing Damon early days. Elastica were so fucking huge so quickly. Oh my God. I mean, that record was iconic as fuck. Like they were the Strokes in 92 or 3 or whatever. They felt exactly the same way as the Strokes did. Like this hot shit fucking rich girl who's just like totally fucking drop dead gorgeous, has so much fucking attitude. Maybe weren't that great live, but like it didn't matter. Oh god damn. I so made a mistake there when I was talking about Suede. Well, it's because Suede had the Glastonbury, the festival thing. That they cracked it first in that way. TQ's reevaluation of Elastica. What's TQ? The Quietus? Is that still fucking going? Yeah, I haven't read that. I can't. I'll take a look. I'm sorry. I'm not big on worthy music writing anymore. Like I just can't. I want to read stories. I'm tired of fucking people annotating when records came out and what songs were on them and whether they were good. Thanks, guys. Like, incredible. You can read the internet. Way to go. I want to hear people telling stories. I don't know why this isn't happening. Even today, it's just all fucking. I don't know what. How is anyone fulfilled by this? Like I wikied up some bullshit and made a podcast talking about years and days. Here's 5 albums to get you into things that I've determined by consensus appear to be the ones because I read some stuff. Hey, there's a guitar in this song. Do you like guitar? You should check this out. And they play an A chord. Like, what the fuck, man? I want to hear like fucking people's story. Like, tell me how fucking uncool you were. Tell me what a fucking loser you were. Tell me how late you were to hearing Radiohead. Tell me like you slept on the Strokes or you were like, you thought Limp, you know what I mean? Like that just, it's be real. It doesn't matter anyway. How can I keep going after that? I just, it's maddening. And when people send me, links to these articles, it's just like I'm asleep within a paragraph. I don't know, man. Limited edition of 3,000. Yeah, the Jessamine single. So I get it's the train spotting aspect of people doing this in this way, and not just telling it through themselves and through their experiences. It doesn't resonate for me. It never has, which is why I loved bold writing like that. I loved bold writing even if it fell on its face. Because at least you're trying and you're getting something yourself and your voice out there, if nothing else, People aren't going to remember articles about how important Loveless was. Like, I know it's important. It's a really good record. Yeah, I heard it. It's like Mojo, who the fuck can read Mojo essays? or could at the time. And there is that aspect of it. There's the stacking and the iterative aspect of it of, you know, yeah, at this point, are you really going to do, you know, the top 10 lists of lists and all that, and, you know, Pavement and, you know, all the jokes that have been made over the years about this, the Strokes song, you know, top 10 ideas for countdown shows. True. You know, that's where we're at. I mean, fully. And it, you know, again, we can go down the rabbit hole of why that is. It's because the like I said earlier in the stream, the only people who can afford to write for the internet are kids who don't need to make any money because their parents are paying their rent. And I don't, like, 23-year-olds are not explaining the world to me anymore. I wasn't trying to explain the world to anyone when I was 23 and doing this. I was trying to tell people how I felt. But that's not what almost anybody is doing today. They're trying, you know, they're just trying to get numbers, and we all know how that goes. So anyway, what I was trying to finish there with Elastica, man, super fucking weird. But because she had the resources to just do whatever she wanted, to walk away or whatever, you know. Not that the Blur guys, well, I mean, you know, Blur wasn't from the same resources as her, but point being, like, Blur were in record label debt. They weren't really in debt. I think once song 2 happened, it was just like, all debts are paid. And they just made so much goddamn money off that song. They didn't need to lift a finger after that, but it allowed them to. It allowed them to call their own shot, and it allowed them to do 13 and say, like, I don't give a shit anymore. I'm going to do whatever I want. And yeah, maybe not all of that is their most enduring music, but maybe for me, Trim Trav is probably, like, you know, one of my top 3 Blur songs. Yeah, that sends me back to the Discord right there. So yeah, I mean, that's trying to put a bow on this whole thing, you know, because otherwise it's just repeating. It's so repetitive talking about all indie, 90s indie, all this shit. I think, you know, the pop punk thing is a great breakout. Glad I did that. And you know, the last one and this one sort of deal with what is the loudest, most annoying aspect of the vaunted 90s, which is, you know, indie rock and Britpop. And we've never stopped since, like, 99. We've been nostalgic for this while these bands were still together. We've been beating everyone over the head with the importance of the Britpop moment and the importance of Nirvana as a cultural watershed, right? So now I can stop, and hopefully there's enough threads there, you know, that push you to look at it in different ways and to examine it in different ways. And maybe get a flavor of it. I think the biggest thing people don't understand that's really important is that first point I made, which is these legacy 80s bands that were just so definitively older and of the 80s, and that couldn't continue to exist if we were going to have a 90s. So there's that regicide aspect to every decade turning over. It happens all the time, you know, punk rock, whatever. And it's I guess it's not a regicide as much as a suicide in this case, but that doesn't happen until 94. And you know, they have their moment, and then it just, the singer from Sleeper, she makes the greatest summary of it in Live Forever when she says that Robbie Williams invited them to come listen to what he was doing in the studio because he wanted, like, an indie band to see what they thought of his shit. And she was just like, that's it. This is Oasis but Elton John, and that's the future. That's where it's going to go for the next, like, 10 years. It's going to be Robbie Williams doing Oasis songs. She's totally right, and it's such a beautifully succinct way to describe the fulcrum, the turning point of the Ego Has Landed and the Spice Girls. Those were such, you know, they transformed, and the Millennium Dome and all that. And nationalism, I guess, too, with the Spice Girls, that it became unrecognizable, and the worthy indie bands were no longer needed. So the Trainspotting soundtrack is sort of like the end. After that, it all goes the other way, and that's why, you know, I mean, they did the soundtrack with indie bands for the cred, which was sort of already, you know, 96 and 97, sort of like whatever. But like it was also cheaper. So, you know, there's a little cynicism with the Trainspotting soundtrack in that way. But yeah, Cool Britannia, the Vanity Fair issue, that's well covered in that Live Forever documentary. So yeah, definitely watch that. You know, you can tell that I've memorized it over the years. Because again, I do believe that it is true. I believe that it's true that these 3 to 4 years were the most hysterically fun and ridiculous years during which any kind of bullshitter could walk on and get a chance, and get a shot. There was so much fucking money going around, and I've said a million times, and there's an interview I did with Shauna Carmody right there from the Swirlies. Even in America, major labels were throwing fucking stupid money at indie bands until Hootie and the Blowfish. And that was the kind of you know, great rock and roll swindle, you know, overthrow or invasion of the music industry by this next generation in a pretty diffuse way, because they'd started it sort of with shoegaze, but it just wasn't breaking in a big monetary way. It was like, okay, we'll keep trying. It takes the you know, the stubbornness and the persistence and the willfulness of Blur, and it takes the nationalistic sort of you know, I don't know, Jaffa Cake aspect of Oasis. Like they are such a caricature of caricatures past, of the Kinks and the Jam and Gary Glitter and the Beatles. I mean, the Oasis is is so self-parodic in a way, but also sincere, because they're just kind of shit-kicking kids from Manchester. You know, Stone Roses, yeah, they didn't crack shit. They didn't even sell 1 million. Stone Roses record topped that at 700 and something thousand. As big as they were with Spike Island, which I started this 90s thing with, unfortunately, with the goddamn mic not working. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a truly remarkable, cool, fucked up thing that, God, I would have loved to have been able to live through a moment like that. I certainly did not, you know. You know, my experience of indie here was the same as every other 75,000 kids and 100 and something thousand kids in America. You know, it's Lollapalooza, buying 7 inches, going to see Pavement. I don't know. I mean, it just never had any excitement. Indie rock in America was never exciting. Yellow Tango's never been exciting. I've seen them like 7 times. Never been excited once. I've been appreciative. I've been appreciative that they made music that I like, that's endured and stuck with me, and that still has a nostalgic, emotional. Like, I mean, from a Motel 6, fuck, Double Dare. Oh my God. A Worrying Thing, Painful. God damn, these songs still just send me right back. And that's an important aspect of, and it tells you when a song is really good, if it still works for you and continues to work for you over the years. But it wasn't exciting. Britpop was extremely fucking exciting and cool and fucking crazy. And I think it's that when you look at late 90s indie in America, there's so many cities where they're trying to do misshapes. And in Boston, there was a club called The Pill, which started in North Station at a fucking dump and then moved to JP. And American kids in their early and mid 20s wanted all of this. They wanted to do coke. They couldn't get it before. Indie was such a milk, boring fucking have beer, PBR bullshit scene. And then they wanted some style, and the white belts come in. And then it's like they're doing, like Misshapes in New York was 100% about like trying to reify Britpop. Obviously, it's named after the Pulp song. But like, you know, Layla Zark and all those people, I had a bunch of other variously intoxicated streams early in COVID about this. Like me, they looked back at the swagger, the sexy fucking, you know, just abandon of Britpop. And sure, some of it's how it was marketed to them, and it's from afar, so it has that golden sheen. But like, you know, as I said, seeing Blur as a kid when they were basically still Seymour, it was totally unmemorable and fucking stupid until they became the Woohoo song. And I was like, you know, like, I mean, obviously I had Park Life and The Great Escape, and I knew Girls and Boys, and I loved it. And you know, all those, you know, Park Life itself, you know, the XTC-ness of Blur was not lost on me at the time. I was a big XTC fan. So, you know, I got some of those nuances, but yeah, I think, I guess that's my final point I would make, is that the legacy of Britpop here doesn't happen until, let's say, 5 years later ish. And everyone feels like, because I remember watching Live Forever when it came out in the early 2000s, and I was going to those nights. I DJ'd a few of them. There was a shitty fucking club in Midtown called Siberia that was like a pre-gaming place to go before Misshapes and anything else, or a post-gaming, as it may be, because they never closed. Yeah, I mean, for me, I was throwing in shit from like the Hacienda and like Banbera's Shack Up, and trying to prove like I had, I played Gang of Four. Well, everybody was playing Gang of Four. Used to play Gang of Four every fucking night at these Britpop. Everyone played I Found That Essence Rare, because you know what it was, and then it ended up on that How to Kill a DJ comp. That thing was fucking monster too. God damn, remember when that fucking came out? Or probably you guys are too young. Man, when fucking How to Kill a DJ came out, that mix. Oh my god, that's some watershed shit. I think it was a Spanish kid that did it. But if you go get that, I doubt it's streaming, but you can buy it probably for nothing. That's what it was like. Like there was this record collector. Like, what can you get away with spinning at a night? Like you were gonna spin like, The Fall and like at what would be a club night. This whole like ultra thing. That's what LCD Sound System comes out of, and that stupid fucking song, which is basically a Dead Milkmen song. His bullshit. He was one of the people at these shows too. And then he started doing his own thing at pianos and wherever else. And that one-upsmanship, he documented it in his song, which I always just say, You'll Dance to Anything, which is the Dead Milkmen song, because it's the same thing. It's just naming a bunch of fucking bands. But, he is truly documenting the nerdy, have you heard this aspect of American indie? And that, man, I was guilty of it, and it was there for almost 10 years. The brinksmanship, the one-upsmanship of all of that was really persistent, but it did blow up massively in New York and in other cities in the very, very late and early 2000s, the very late 2000s. And getting coke was a big part of that. Like having access to drugs was a big deal. No one had been able to do it. I swear to God, it was really hard to find. And if you could at Cokies or whatever, it was barely coke. It was performative coke. You might as well have been doing like, mostly baby powder and whatever, like the shit that was coming through those dives in Brooklyn and whatever. It was awful. The Lower East Side, it was just not even doable. I mean, it was, but it's a big commitment to try and get fucking blasted off that. When real coke comes, and I mean, I'm sure it was there in the art scene. Older people had it, but like kids couldn't get real coke is my point. They couldn't get good shit. By the time you get to the point where like you can do a bump and you're like, that's a whole different thing. When you can do it in the way that it's like an accessory, and you can really turn nights into days and fucking crazy shit. There's the meet me in the bathroom thing where I shit on that book and talk about how those art scenes had this first, and how Vice magazine was so important, and Dan Cullen and all these people, like that world had all the class A drugs you could fucking kill yourself on. Indie fucking college kid fucking take the L train NYU bullshit kids. They couldn't get fucking real coke. It was the people with like galleries that have always been able to get it. But yeah, it blew up and it made everything. I mean, that video was fun. I mean, the only reason I made it, I don't know her at all. She got a lot of fucking massive press off that. Good for her. But it's just totally wrong. It's from the wrong angle. The time frame is completely wrong. The setup isn't there. It's not known to the person who wrote it clearly, because it's extremely obvious if you were down there, even if you were a fucking tourist like me. But anyway, I don't remember that one. It was months and months ago, but it was funny. But Moby was the worst. What a douche. And David Cross is an even bigger douche. It's just all those same fucking losers, like the Tim and Eric guys. Fucking all those people can take a fucking dive. They're the problem. They're the problem when those fucking people show up. And they helped ruin the dude who was running the website that I made my name via. I can tell you that. All right. I'm going to kill it before we get to 90 because that's when they usually turn it down. All right. I'm going to take the mic off so Joe can see the back of this. But yeah, if you guys haven't, if the people who have the Desire U2s haven't fucked with them yet, start tearing that shit up. I want to start. I mean, Joe can send me, if you put pictures on whatever this Discord is you guys are all on, Joe will send it to me. All right. So yeah. Oh man, I went through the whole fucking American Indie. And I didn't even talk about fucking Bedhead. But anyway, that was like the whole like Bedhead. It was like the most neutral band, and that was the band that I retreated into when I was talking about that whole indie like rejection of whatever, but forgot to pull it. Gotta work on your shirts. Work on your shirts, boys.